howdy, and welcome to the Breakaway podcast. Thanks for listening. Breakaway is a Bible study that meets on the campus of Texas A&M. For more information on Breakaway, please visit breakawayministries.org. We hope you enjoy the talk.
Well, today is Ring Day in Aggie Land. Okay. And it's not just Ring Day, it is the largest Ring Day in Aggie history. Hundreds of Aggies got that ring that is the most important ring in their life now, signifying that they are part of the Aggie family now and forever. It's such a proud moment that they're almost graduated, right? But I don't want to talk about that tonight. I want to talk about a different Ring Day. One would say maybe an even more important Ring Day that is coming in the near future for just about every family in this room. And you say, well, Ben, what are you talking about? Well, let me show you a short video to just give you a glimpse of where we're going tonight. Check this out.
True, it couldn't have been written.
I know how much she means to you. I know how much you love her. I know she is your heart.
There comes a time when every father lets his little girl go.
I just want you to know that I love her too, and I am by no means trying to steal her away from you.
To another man that loves her as much as he does.
I want to spend the rest of my life with her. She is my heart, my friend, my everything.
It's a story about two people who find true love right around the corner.
She is nothing like any woman I've ever met before, and everything I've always wanted and more.
That teaches us everyone out there does have a soulmate.
I want you to know that I'll protect her. I will honor and respect her and treat her the way she deserves to be treated.
And that every true love story isn't in the movies.
I didn't even know what real love is, but she is showing me and teaching me every day. It might be old-fashioned, it may not even be necessary, but it's important to me, and I know it's important to your daughter that I do this as well. I'd like to have your blessing, sir. May I have your daughter's hand in marriage?
You have my permission for a hand in marriage. I would love to have you as a son-in-law.
Coming this winter from Universal Studios, making the movies jealous.
What are you waiting for?
Virginia Lee Joyner, since our second date, I've always said that we were going to be making the movies jealous. You mean everything to me, and I meant that. Will you give me the honor, and will you marry me? Bravo.
Oh, such a mixture of emotions in the room. For some, it just stirs up tears of joy and laughter. For others, hope of maybe that day coming soon. And for other dads of little girls, so much stress. Just knowing that the average wedding in Texas right now costs over $35,000. And knowing that some guy is going to come and try to take your little girl. Oh my gosh, such a mixture of stress, but this is coming, people. It's coming. So we've been a series about dating this semester, and we called it Single, Dating, Engaged, Married, this journey that the vast majority of Americans go through in their 20s. And so we're talking about getting engaged tonight, and some of you might say, Ben, why? That's kind of a narrow slice of life for people, anywhere from 4 to 12 months. And most of us in this room are not in that moment of life It's Parents' Weekend. Shouldn't you be talking about something like, I don't know, parenting? Wouldn't that make more sense in this moment? Well, let me say a couple things. One is that this is my 11th Parents' Weekend, and so you'll forgive me if I get a little more creative. I think I've taught every single parenting passage in the Bible over the last decade of doing this, right? But here's another reason why we're doing this tonight, because the reality is the vast majority of young people in this room right now will get married. And I thought there'd be more whoops for that one. The vast majority will get married in their 20s. That means this moment is coming within the next 7 to 10 years for many of the young people in this room. And some of you college students may say 10 years sounds like an eternity. I promise you to your parents, you were 10 like a minute ago, right? 10 years is not too soon, right? This reality is coming, and here's the reality. It's going to radically impact the families in this room. Far more than you getting a job. Like your parents are hoping you'll get a job, but your mom's not gonna cry when you get a job, right? But she's gonna cry when you bring that special someone home, be like, oh my God, my baby, right? And here it goes. Your dad cares if you get a job, okay? That's a core value. But like, I'm a consultant, I'm an accountant, it's kind of whatever. He's gonna say, hey, look, the important thing is to get a job. That's not gonna be his advice when you bring someone home. It's not gonna be like, Charlie, Matt, whatever, the important thing's a guy. He's not gonna say that. Totally different conversation around that. It means a lot more, because here's the reality. We talked about singleness and we gave you one word, devotion. God said that singleness is about devotion to the Lord, that you would know your maker. And dating is about evaluation, trying to figure out if somebody's a fit, right? And we talked about two things you're looking for, character and chemistry. Chemistry, do you like hanging out with them? Do y'all get along? Can you talk to one another? Because you're gonna be talking a lot for the rest of your life. But do they also have character, a firm foundation? There's someone you can trust and believe in, that they will be there for you, for better and yes, for worse. That's what you're looking for. And now we're moving on to engagement, and engagement is about union. Bringing your two lives together, the two becoming one, moving towards one another. And it's not just a union of two people, it's a union of families. You're pulling families together, so every family in here will be impacted for the rest of your life based on who you marry and how that goes down, right? So we got to talk about it. And here's the reality. Some of you go, well, my kid's not about to be engaged. You don't know. But here, let me say this. Is that it's coming, and I've never heard a sermon on getting engaged, all right? I had to make all this up, right? But we're gonna use the wisdom literature in the Bible, because the wisdom literature, much of it is written to parents pleading with their kids to be wise and make good choices, right? And so we wanna give you this sermon. Why? Because some of you go, well, this doesn't matter for my moment right now, but I promise you, this will give you something interesting to talk about when you leave here later, right? And I'll make a prophecy now that some of you in 5 to 7 years, when they do come home and bring that somebody, you're gonna go, where's that sermon? You're gonna wanna download this, because this is gonna mean something to you, all right? So what are we talking about? Well, I wanna do a few things. I wanna give the first couple points are gonna apply to everyone in your life, but I'm mainly talking to the young people who you've been dating somebody because there was some chemistry. You're like, I like him, he's funny. Oh, she's cute, and she likes me and thinks I'm funny, and all that. And then you start to realize, oh, the character is there too. They're a solid person with integrity. And you start dating, and as you move through the evaluation process, for many of you, you get closer to the point where people start asking you, hey, what's going on with you guys? Hey, you're about to graduate. What's happening? What city's he moving to? So what city are you moving to? And you start getting those questions that say, it is plausible I could be married. Am I with the right person? When you're walking right up to engagement, how do you know you're a good fit together? So our first couple points are gonna point to that. How do you know you got the right guy or the right girl? And then the last thing we're gonna talk about before we close is how do you have that moment with their parents, all right? When you think you got them, how do you do this in a way that's life-giving and not an absolute train wreck? So that's where we're going. First of 4 points of how do you know you got the right person? You're dating them, you like them, you think they're cool, they're a good person, they love God, but how do you know you're meant to be together forever? The first thing you need is to see an internal sense of mutual commitment. You need to sense an internal commitment, a resolve to stay with one another even though it's hard, right? Do you want to work through problems? That's another way to say it. And I'm not saying, do you have the ability to work through problems? Some of you could grit your teeth and endure all kinds of punishment, but hopefully marriage won't be that. And so I'm asking you, do you want to resolve problems with this person? That's how you know. Song of Solomon, the book about love in the Bible, says it this way about love. The beloved says, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is as strong as death. Jealousy is fierce as the grave. It flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Love is like death. How? In the sense that death grips hold and it doesn't give back. When death grabs you, it commits, right? And it's saying love is like that. How do you know real love? Because it grabs hold and it stays, for better or worse. There is a deep commitment, a resolve to work through any problems. See, when you're first attracted to someone, attraction's important, it's God-given, but it's like striking a match. Woo, it's exciting, wow, and there's suddenly a flame where there wasn't one before, and that's what initial romance is like, right? And you're running around crazy, singing songs, food tastes better, the birds are singing, it's all wonderful. And for many people, the mistake they made is then they start to heap on that the lighter fluid of sexual contact, or beginning to fool around with each other. And it's like spraying lighter fluid around a match. You keep a flame going, but there's no depth. And if you get married in that, you're going to wake up a few years later and go, do I even like you? And you're going to want to like them because you're going to spend a lot of time together. And so what you need is to pull back, and as you go through this time of evaluating and talk to one another and interact with one another, you need those deep coals, those red hot flames of, I am committed to you. I'm resolved to work through any problems for you, that even if the weather gets bad or the rain falls, those deep white hot coals stay hot and will light up a blaze again and again and again throughout your life. So a big question is, how do you know if you have that kind of resolve? You have to see how you navigate the temptations and trials of life. You got to wait and see. When drama comes, will you stay? That's how they pick Navy SEALs, right? What do? The vast majority of men who make it through the screening process to go to BUDS, that process to become a SEAL, the vast majority of them, when they get a physical, it is scientifically a certainty they have the physical tools to pull off that rigorous program to become a Navy SEAL. They have the physical tools. And yet there's a 75% dropout rate. Why? Because they dunk them in freezing cold water again and again and again. And then they make them get out and roll around in sand, and then they put them back in the freezing ocean and let the water run up their nose and do it again and again and again. And they're not going to die. It's not going to kill them. But at some point, they start to evaluate, how bad do I want this? And then they realize, this will be my job. Like in my job, I'll be in cold water all the time. That's what SEALs do. And so their body can handle it, but all this pain is making them go, you know what? I don't want this career. I was just here to prove if I was tough, and you know what? I'm tough. I can answer that, but this is a lame job. And so they offer them a Snickers bar and ring a bell, and they're gone, right? Song of Solomon says it this way, many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. How do you know that commitment is there? Because it'll resist temptations, right? And so you wait. Let an old boyfriend, old girlfriend come around and just watch what they do, right? If they're like, oh, wait a minute, whoa. If they're evaluating, then you go, you know what? You're the wrong guy. A little temptation and you're gone, okay? This isn't true love. You wait and see some hardships come. Get in an argument where you disagree on some fundamental things, right? Get in a situation where you see a little character flaw in them or a little annoying habit that you realize will never go away. And you go, oh God, right? And you see what happens, right? This is the moment when I remember it, because I was the last one of my friends to get married. Like every one of my groomsmen was married and like had their kids up there with them, right? I held out. And every single one of them, when they met the one, said, oh, Ben, you just know. It's so easy. Which I don't know if you've heard friends say that. Super annoying, isn't it? Oh, you just know. Well, how do you know? I don't know, you just know. It's easy. And I remember really pressing a friend once, what do you mean it's easy? Do you mean y'all never fought? He says, no, we fought. You mean you never disagreed? No, we had conflict. Then what about it was easy? And he said, in previous relationships, when it got hard, there was always underneath it a question of, is this right? should this work? Should we be doing this? This is a lot of energy and time and money. He said, with this person, though we would disagree, and it would be hard sometimes, but what I looked in and found in myself was a deep resolve that said, but I'm not going anywhere. It's worth navigating through the pain to come back to intimacy. And there's no temptation. I don't care if some old girlfriend comes by. There's no other fish in the sea for me. Any temptation, any trial, any suffering, any seduction, they don't tempt me. I want you. And that will take some time. And sometimes that'll take some distance. For me, I wasn't sure about Donna. She was sure right away about me, right? I took time. That's not a statement about her, all right? I had some commitment issues. I know you're like, a guy with commitment issues? What do you mean? Just take it by faith. There's one, and I had them. And so we had a summer where her band was leading worship all over the country. And I was looking at going to seminary, and we weren't sure if our lives were meant to journey forever, so we went different ways. And I had to take a couple months apart from her. And it took me about that long. I remember sitting on a boat one summer and trying to figure out, what is this feeling in my soul? And I was like, I think I'm sad. And I was like, why are you downcast, oh my soul? And I realized I miss Donna, which was a weird feeling for me. I was like, I miss that person. And then I sat there and thought, would I rather do life with her or without her? And I thought, I want to be with her no matter what hardship that brings, more than I want to be apart. And for me, I was like, I think that means I love her, right? Now, does that mean you'll always feel a deep passion? No, and this will sound unromantic, but here's the reality. You're playing the percentages. That sounds so unromantic. What I mean by that is this. If 90% of the time you feel certain they're the one, life, your emotions on a roller coaster ride, that means 1 thought in 10, you'll go, yeah. And you'll have a crazy thought, but it'll go away because 9 other thoughts will be why they're the one. If you're having about 5 thoughts a day of, don't marry him, right? You wait to see if the resolve is there, right? When you get married, you sign a document that tells God and the world, I am binding my life in commitment to this person forever. You make sure that piece of paper is a reflection of what you feel like is happening in here, right? Because true love is stronger than death, more powerful than the grave. And you wait to see if that's there, right? The second thing you need is not just a deep resolve in my soul, you need the skill of communication. It's not just a sense of commitment to this person, it's the ability to communicate, which is a skill. Can I navigate relational conflict? Can we disagree in a way that promotes unity, not disunity? Proverbs 12 says it this way, there is one whose rash words are like thrusts of a sword, but the tongue of the wise bring healing. When we disagree, do our words become hurting one another so I can win? Or even when my feelings are hurt, do I speak words that are wise and bring healing and health to this relationship? You need the skill of communication. If it's gonna work, you can feel crazy about them, but if y'all can't communicate when life gets hard, you're not gonna make it. And I'll just give you a little preview. When you get engaged, what's the first thing you do? You plan a big event for everyone you know. That's not stressful, is it? No, right? Just every human being you've ever met is going to attend and evaluate this event the two of you are going to put on together. You think that's going to raise some issues? It will, and you're going to want to have the skill of communicating with each other. You've got to be able to talk. And I personally, it makes me nervous when I counsel couples. They go, oh, we never disagree. We never fight. Then I say, do you know each other? And I don't think couples should fight. Like, I don't think you should raise your voice or get angry at all. I don't think it should work like that. But what I'm saying is, if you're never disagreeing, you don't really know each other. Because two human beings aren't going to line up perfectly on everything. You're going to hit moments of disagreement, and can you move through those in a healthy way? Or is it an ugly thing, right? And so you've got to have, like Proverbs 15 talks about, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. Can I speak to you even when I'm upset in a gentle way that is a tree of life for us, produces growth? Or does my way I speak to you suddenly get bent and hurtful? Which is it going to be? And I've given whole talks on communication. I'm not going to do a lot here now, but let me tell you, when you disagree with that person, you need to focus on their actions and your feelings. Not their feelings, You're trying to humiliate me. You're trying to make me look dumb. You don't know their motives. You focus on their actions and your feelings, right? I'll give you an example. Early in our marriage, I remember my wife and I, we were at like a party talking to some people, and she said something personal about me to get a laugh out of the people in the crowd. And I realized in myself, that shut me down quick, right? I don't like that. And we got together later, and we had to talk about this, and it helps to focus on her actions, my feelings. And what did I say? Say, hey, when you made fun of me in front of those people, that action, it made me feel humiliated and stupid and small, and I didn't like that. Now that was hard for me to do as a young man because it just, the sentence of my feelings get hurt sounded so weak. Felt much more natural to go, why are you trying to make me look dumb? Why are you trying to make me, and do you see, that's about motive. I don't know her motive. And so many of you have had arguments like, why are you trying to make me look stupid? I'm not trying to make you look stupid. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. Well, you're being too sensitive. Well, you don't know me. And what happens? Nothing positive. And we began to learn to communicate of saying, hey, when you said that joke about me, it made me feel embarrassed, and it made me feel like we weren't a team. And when I go out in the world, I want to feel like we're a team. And what she said was, I don't want you to feel embarrassed, and I don't want you to feel like I'm not on your team, because I am. So what do I need to do differently? And I said, don't make fun of me. I don't like it. And she was like, I won't. And then she said, and when you tell me that, can you speak gently and encourage me and not just give me data rapid fire, all right? And I was like, what? I guess, and I had to learn how to speak with more gentleness. And we began to focus on that. What did you do? How did it make me feel? I don't want to make you feel that way, so let's change what we do. And if you talk that way, let me tell you something, you'll navigate through a lot of issues real quick if we can speak with kindness to one another. Can you communicate? You can find someone you really like, but if when y'all communicate about deep things, it descends into arguments and yelling, you pump the brakes on that. You need the skill of communication. The next thing you need is you need to survive a moment of confession. And you say, what do you mean by that? Proverbs 28:13 says, whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. What do you mean? What I mean is there's a moment when you're really coming up close to marrying somebody that you got to look and say, you know what, if we're going to link our lives together, you need to know about my life. And not just the things you see, not just the parts I want to project to the world, but you need to know about some of the broken things in me and some of the broken things in my past. And that's a hard conversation. And for many of us, it involves relationships that we were a part of that weren't healthy, decisions we made that weren't good, and you need to be able to talk about those. Why? Because they say it in AA, and it's true, we're only as sick as our secrets. And concealing transgressions from the closest one to you isn't a healthy way to start a marriage. You want to be able to have all the doors open. Now, you don't have to have a deep conversation about that brokenness on date 1. Date 2, I wouldn't recommend that. You don't need to have it on date 10. But somewhere down the road, if you think y'all are journeying to the two become one, you need to have a moment where you don't give them every sordid detail, but you tell them about what happened to you, about some of the things you've done, and you lay out to them all those secret things in your heart you're scared to. Why? Because let me tell you something. One, it's a signal to them that you trust them, even with the broken things in you. And that's scary. That's real scary. You do this with wise counsel. But let me tell you something that's pretty powerful. If you can present to someone even the most broken, sad parts of you, and they can come to you and extend mercy, when you realize this person knows the worst there is about me and still loves me, that will knit you together so deep. And you need that. You don't need to do that right away. But as you're getting closer to marriage, I would encourage you, with wise counsel around you, have that moment where you can say, I'm not hiding or putting on a show for this person. They know all the good and bad about me and love me anyway. That is a perfect picture of how Christ loves his church, how a husband loves a wife and a wife a husband. And when you hear someone who can see those things in you and forgive you and love you and move through them with you, that will fasten you together deeply. And if you have a person who can't forgive you, then praise God you figured that out on this side of marriage, because you don't want to marry somebody like that. You want a husband that's like Jesus, who grabbed us at our dirtiest and loved us. You want a wife like Jesus, who will see you and all of your brokenness and extend towards you anyway. You need that. You need that. And there's more to say around that, but we got to move a little faster. The last thing is you need some community. Proverbs 11 says, where there's no guidance, a people falls, but in the abundance of counselors, there's safety. You don't need everybody around you giving you advice when you get married. My wife and I were both on staff at churches, and I remember I tried to keep secret that we were dating as long as possible. Not because I was embarrassed to her, not because I wanted her to be my secret friend, but because I was at a church in the suburbs and I was the single guy at the church, right? And I just saw our little relationship like this little flower that was tender, growing in the dirt. And I just knew a lot of well-meaning people would run up to it and be like, grow, flower, grow, come on. Right? And I was like, I don't want all your crazies to touch this, right? But with counselors, victory is sure. And so I found some healthy married couples and some good friends who loved me enough to be straight with me. And I said, I want you around this. And if you see weeds, you call them out. If you see a lack of health, you need to tell me. And so you need good community around you to be able to speak over this thing. It's good. It's good. And you sense that commitment and y'all can communicate clearly and you know the depths and your community is saying you guys go, then guess what? You know you're ready to cross over that threshold to get married. And so what happens next? You talk to the family. How's that going to work? Oh, Lord. Well, let me say this. I want to speak to the young people first. Proverbs 10 says, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a sorrow to his mother. And that counts for son-in-laws too. You want to bring these people gladness, not sorrow, right? And you go, how do I do that? If you're going to bring your lives together, you're going to bring these families together. They're going to be your mother and your dad until you die. That's where you're headed. And so you want to get off on the right foot, right? You want to start that one solid because you're going to be seeing them again every single Christmas, right? And so how do you start the thing off right? Well, let me tell you, this whole book is about wisdom. There's an art to how to do this. They need to see what their son or daughter sees. Character and chemistry. Chemistry, that you make their child happy, y'all have a rapport, and character, that you're a responsible human being who can provide and pay the bills. This is where most young men that I counsel go wrong when they're young and want to get married. Because they sense the chemistry and they fall in love and they're so excited. And so they go to the dad and go, I love your daughter. And he goes, a lot of people love my daughter. And you're like, so she should be mine. Goes, I don't know you, son. Boom, boom, right? It's not going to work, right? Not gonna work. And I have young guys come to my office and say, I want to marry her, and her dad's being all weird about it. He's like, she got to finish college or something cruel like that. So I don't know. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to find a Bible verse that says he has the authority to do that. What do you think? And I'm like, time out, bro. I said, let me tell you something. I said, that man, he and his wife had a baby, and he was handed that baby. And some part of his heart lit up, suddenly came alive that wasn't alive before, of a deep, profound love for that child. And then he looked up and saw this dangerous, perverted, twisted world. And he did this. And what has come into this man's heart is, my life is now about protecting and providing for this girl. And there's nothing you've done to convince him that you're not a threat. I've experienced that. My oldest was 4. And the other day I was helping her put on her shoes as she was going to school. And she said, Tony's going to like these. And I was like, who's Tony? And I'm looking at my wife like, who's Tony? And she's like, relax, it's a kid from her school. I'm like, I don't know him. I don't know him, and I don't care what Tony thinks about your shoes, and you don't need to care about Tony. You know what? If he's got some plans, I want to know who this Tony is. Let me tell you something. You tell him, I'm not afraid to go back to jail, okay? It's not a problem for me. Tell me about no Tony. I tried to keep that inside. I just said something like, well, who's Tony? He's a threat to me. So Ephesians chapter 6 says, honor your father and your mother. That includes father-in-laws and mother-in-laws. So you go, how do you honor somebody? How do you honor a person? Let me tell you something. By valuing what they value. That's how you do it. You value what they value. That's what communicates honor to somebody. How can you communicate it to them? With your words and with your wealth. That's how. So you go, with your words, what do you mean? I mean, when you meet the parents, and this counts for guys and girls, when you meet the parents, you want to communicate that you value them. How can you do that? I'll tell you an easy way to do it. You ask questions. Because people like to talk about themselves, and if you are genuinely interested in them as a human being, that will help establish trust. And I'm not telling you to do something manipulative. I'm saying you should care about them, and the way to let them know that you value them is to ask them questions. And that way you'll get to know them and the depths of them. And so ask them about it, and anything in their life you can celebrate what they celebrate. Even if that's a struggle for you. Let's say you love interior design and you walk in and she's decorated her house with all like cool chicken stuff and you're not into chickens. Don't pull back and be like, well, that's weird. Pull forward and say, man, this is amazing. There's a lot of chickens in here. What's the story behind that? Y'all are saying this like I'm making that up. That's real. And you say, talk me through that. And then maybe they tell you about how it reminds them of how they grew up and the qualities and the thing they treasured as a child. And what happens? You just took a step deeper into intimacy and you're valuing what they value. You do that. When you look at the book of Proverbs, it's a father pleading with a son to be wise. How do you know he's wise? The first thing is the humility to listen. And so you listen. Second thing is that you can display a sense of integrity, particularly sexually. It's all through the wisdom literature. That's a difficult deal. And then the third one that shows up over and over and over again is wealth. How do you handle money? Because let me tell you something, especially guys, as you're coming to that family, those parents are caring for that girl and providing for that girl, and you're walking up to that guy, and essentially what you're saying is, hand me that baby and pay $40,000 for me to have that baby. How are you going to win that one? Let me tell you how you're going to win that one. By this guy that's protecting that kid, you show him, I'm not a predator, I'm a protector right along with you. And how do you let him know that? You honor him by asking him questions, express gratitude, celebrate everything in his life you can celebrate, right? You be a part of that man's life as much as he'll allow you to be. And then you tell him, I will provide. And then you say a number of how much money you have in the bank, right? I tell young guys this. A lot of people aren't getting married right out of college anymore, but a lot of young guys will come up to me and say, hey, I want to marry a girl. And I say, you know what? I get that you want to. Can you pay all of her bills? And they're like, I'm not thinking about that. We're going to live on love. I was like, love doesn't pay the bills, son. I said, love should propel you to pay the bills. And so if you tell him, I want to marry your daughter, and he says, I want her to finish school, let me tell you what he's saying. He's saying, I don't want you to screw up her life. I want her to have a degree to open up options. I don't want you to close options for her because I don't know you. And I've had guys say, well, man, why is he saying that? I was like, hey, you know what? Let her finish school. Have her finish school. That's okay. What's wrong with that? You wait, and you show him you're willing, she's worth waiting for. I was like, and then let me tell you something. You go sit down with an accountant, and I tell young guys to do this. You go sit down with somebody, and you figure out what it costs to live. And sometimes I got to have that reality check with boys. I'm like, let me tell you how this works. Do you know how much an apartment costs? Do you know how much insurance costs? Let me tell you what happens. Your insurance costs this, her insurance costs this, but 1 + 1 does not equal 2. It equals like 7. They've rigged it that way. And so you're going to pay a lot for insurance because you've got to have insurance because now you're a risk for having a baby. And so you're going to have to pay that, and you're going to have to get ready for that. And a lot of guys realize, I'm not ready to get married because I'm not ready to take care of her. And I say, no, but now you got a goal. And so when you sit down with that man and that woman, the mom, you can tell him, hey, I love your daughter. I want to care for her. I want to treasure her life. I want to help her flourish and succeed in life. When I think about her future, I think about how can I help her be all that she's meant to be under God. And when I think about finances, I don't have a lot, but I've saved up this. I know how much it'll cost us to live. It'll be this. And so I believe I can take care of her. I promise you, every young guy I've told to do that. Some of you, you'll be far enough out of college, you don't need to physically bring a budget. You'll just tell him, I have the money saved up to take care of her. I know about what it'll cost. But I'm going to tell you, have that number ready in your mind and maybe have that sheet in the back pocket, because I've had many young men see the countenance of that father change when they realize he actually can care for her. And you want to give him that. And ladies, same with you. When you move towards his family, let them know that you care. Ask them questions about their life and celebrate everything you can celebrate about them. That's how you honor people, by valuing what they value, particularly their interest in protecting and caring for their child. And then parents, let me encourage you with this. The writer of Proverbs, as he wrote this book of wisdom to his son, he said in Proverbs 1:8, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction. Forsake not your mother's teaching. They are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck." I love that because it's the pleading of a father in the book of Proverbs. And he says, I want to say some things to you. And let me tell you how I selected the words. I selected them so they would be a gift for you. I picked words that would adorn you and make you better. And I want to encourage you as parents to do that. Ephesians 6 says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Don't embitter them. Don't say words that are soul-crushing." Are you constantly criticizing them? Do you ever compliment them? The writer of Proverbs says, "My words are meant to be a garland around your neck." Do you adorn their life with your words? Some of you say, "Well, I don't want to drown them in compliments. My parents didn't do that." Yeah, but do you kind of wish they did? Then don't deprive your child of that. They still need to hear from you that you believe in them. Celebrate what you can celebrate in the life of your child. And then what will happen is, as they bring this other person in their life, you now have the opportunity to speak into this other life. It's amazing. I remember talking with a friend. He's a professor here at A&M, and he's got a daughter. She's in college now. She was in high school at the time. And he said, "Ben, I'll never forget, she brought a guy home. We were in high school, and it was her first guy that wanted to take her out to a dance, and I said, well, he needs to come have dinner with the family." And I remember he said that to me. He's like, "Yeah, there's a guy interested in my daughter." And so I said, "You got to have him over." And I was like, "Okay, it begins." And I'm kind of leaning into the table like, "What'd you say?" And he said, "Well, I invited him over to dinner, and I wanted him to sit right next to me." And I was like, "Yeah, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I like it. I like where this is going." He said, and then he goes, "I talked to this young man and asked him about his life and heard what was going on with him, and we went back and forth. And yeah, I told him about my love for a daughter and what it's like to be a dad and my hopes for her and my parameters for her, for how to care for her. But then, we just talked a lot about his dreams and goals." And he goes, "And I just realized I have a chance to speak into the life of a young man and be a blessing to him." And I remember as he said that, I was like, oh, yeah. That's how every older person will see a younger person in any field in life. As you're aging in your areas of life, you will see the young beneath you either as a threat or an opportunity. It's your choice, right? And if you see them as a threat, you will try to push them away, and guess what? You'll just limit your voice into the next generation. But if you see the younger people among you as an opportunity to speak life, then you get to multiply your impact in the world. And so you get a chance to get around with these young people. I remember I had a good friend that he loved this girl, and he came to her parents and was like, "I want to marry her." And they were like, "You are incredibly not ready," right? But they didn't just kick him out. They continued to meet with him. And that father talked to him, and this guy was a good-hearted kid. He was just disorganized, right? So it wasn't a big moral issue where, hey, you're not safe to be around my daughter. He was a good man that was a mess. And so this father continued to meet with him. And I remember it was one of the first weddings I cried at, because we were in their rehearsal dinner, and that young man stood up as he stood next to his bride-to-be, and he looked over at his soon-to-be father-in-law, and he said, "Let me tell you something. I remember all those nights I sat on your couch." He said, "I hated that couch." And he said, "But it was an anvil, and God shaped me on it and made me into the man I am. Thank you." And you want that. You want to be able to be someone who will speak the truth in love to the young generation. There's something in the air in our culture that says to older people, the young don't want to hear what you have to say, and it's garbage. It's garbage. They really do. I get so many young people asking me for mentors. And so you ask them questions about their life. Don't just start rolling out advice. Start listening, asking them. And then let me tell you something. You'll see an area where you'll be able to say to them, "Hey, you know what? I think you should be careful there. Hey, have you thought about this yet? Hey, let me tell you a part of that concerns me. Hey, let me tell you something your mother and I did that I'm proud of that we did because I thought it was good for us. Or, hey, let me tell you something I did that was really not best. And I want to save you some of the pain I went through. And you can share that with them. You're in an interesting season in life where this leaving your father and mother and cleaving is already kind of happening as they go off to college. And it's fascinating because what happens is they're still your child, and yet the relationship is becoming closer and closer to peer. It'll never quite be there. But you begin to get to talk to them. And for many of them, one of the greatest gifts you can give them now is that window into your life where you say, this is where I did relationships well. This is where I didn't do it well. This is something we imparted to you that I'm really proud of. And this is something I wish we would have done differently. I'll tell you, for me, as when I was a young man in life, and I actually still do this, when I get to sit with older men that have raised kids that are great kids, I ask them all the time, what's the best thing you did as a dad? What's the best thing you did as a parent? And you know what's funny? They often tell me about their failures. And I listen to them, and I take them in, and then I ask them, but tell me the great things you did too, because I want both, right? And that's a gift they've given me, and it's a gift you can give to your kid. Now, let me close with this. As we talk about that, some of us may hear this, and you go, I don't want to talk about my relational past because it's a train wreck. I don't want to talk about some of the things I've done because a lot of shame comes in my life to even bring it up. Why would you even bring that up? It just makes me feel bad. Right? Well, here's the reality. The mistakes we've made in our life, the transgressions, the messes we've made can heap upon us shame until we take them to the gospel. Because the message of the Bible is not work hard to be good, and so if you fail, feel shame. The message of the Bible is you're a mess. You're beautiful because you're made in the image of God, every person here. But all of us have gone astray. Not one of us is who we should be. Right? And in the Old Testament, in the book of Hosea, God created a picture. He called his people like a wayward wife who became a prostitute. And he pictured himself as the husband. And he said, even when she went as far as she could go, I came for her. I bought her. I brought her out, and I loved her. And my love made her whole. Right? And when Jesus showed up on the scene, religious leaders were asking him, what's your deal? What are you here to do? What are you trying to teach these people? And do you know what he said? He said, the bridegroom's here. The bridegroom's here. He said, I'm not just a teacher. I am the husband. I'm the perfect husband. If God is a father, I am the man he sent to get you and to love you and to bring you into relationship with myself. And when you confess to me what you've done, I come rushing in with forgiveness. Why? Because I lived the perfect life you could not. And then I died the death you deserved. And he who knew no sin became sin on that cross, and he buried it, all your failures and all the shame. And he rose and beat death. And so for those of us who put our faith in Jesus Christ, he says we're united with him, and he's preparing a place for us one day to take us home with him forever. And so you have peace, you have joy, you have forgiveness in him, and that liberates you for shame. So you can talk about the things in your past and say, yeah, that was something good in my life by the grace of God. And then you can say, yeah, that was something that was not good in my life, but the grace of God has covered that and healed that and forgiven that. And here are some lessons from it that can be a blessing to you. And so no one in this room need be without hope. We have a God that loves to forgive and to restore. Nobody's too far gone. And yet as we come to him, we get to enter into these relationships that are a picture of his love for the church, the husband and the wife. And as we move towards one another with a commitment and healthy communication, a connection with one another, man, the world will marvel to see what a beautiful marriage can be. And may we make that journey together, fathers and mothers helping daughters and sons to be all that God has made them as we love him and love each other. Let that be our story, God. And I pray that when that conversation does come of, Dad, I met somebody. Mom, I think I found him. May we all celebrate that it's good. It's good in our family is growing strong like a tree of life by the grace of God.